Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing? How is everybody feeling? So, I am here once again trying to be more consistent with posting these podcasts. And honestly, I can see how difficult and how challenging it is for a bunch of content creators and influencers. But I know, at least for me, and I don't consider myself to be any of those things, I just like to share things that just hops up in my mind. And honestly, that's what motivates me with these podcasts. I could be having a conversation with somebody and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a podcast, or I'm going to channel that and turn it into something. And honestly, that's been the theme of my life. I find that when you are going through whatever you're going through, and you are able to turn it into something else, or turn a lesson into a blessing, turn your struggles into something beautiful, or life to me is art. And sometimes art can look messy, and sometimes it can look elegant, but you turn it into something. But I say all that to say, when I have this conversation with someone, it's like, you know what? It just makes sense. And, if it doesn't make sense to you, then guess what? This podcast isn't for you. But if it does make sense, then it just makes sense that whatever is resonating with you, it's speaking to you. It's loud. It's apparent, and it's obvious in some way, right? So when I was teaching a workout class not that long ago, this was last week. You know what? I think this was Friday, now that I think about it. And the conversation came up about chosen ones. I did a podcast a while back on that, and honestly, if you haven't heard that part, I recommend listening to that podcast first and then coming back, because this is honestly a part 2 from that last podcast. And I spoke about everyone being chosen. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's seen this. You see other people online talking about, I'm the chosen one, blah, blah, blah. We are all chosen. That's why we are chosen to be here now. However, you have to make those steps. You have to make the choice to be chosen. You can't just be chosen and you're not creating any type of impact. But are you chosen? Yes. You just have to find whatever your purpose is and thrive off of that. But all of us are chosen. Some of us are tapped in to our purpose, and some of us are not tapped in. That's where the difference lies. That's where you have to decide for yourself the choice. Because in this world, we have choices. Cue the E40 Choices song, right? We have choices. But because we have a lot of freedom, we have a lot of options, we can choose whatever choice that is. But whatever you choose, that will affect your chosenness, right? Your chosenness responsibility. But all of us are chosen. So when we have this conversation, that's what I said. I just have this deep feeling, and when you have a knowing of something, you just know. And like I said, it does not have to make sense to you or anyone else. It doesn't, but it makes sense to me. Because if we weren't chosen, why are we here in this current lifetime? Now, because there are billions of us, right? There's a lot of people. It doesn't mean that we're all going to be aligned and do the work and follow our purpose all at once. We all have different lifetimes. We are all in different dimensions. And sometimes, let's say our lives from our past, right? Our lives with our past, it catches up to us. And then by the time we get to like a breaking point and it starts to make more sense, it's like, oh, okay. So that's why sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, you've been here before. Or they might tell someone, oh, you have an old soul or an old spirit. That person, or not them physically, but their spirit probably has been here before. They probably lived many, many lives. So maybe they weren't necessarily tapped in to their chosenness and their past lives, and maybe it's starting to affect them now. You know what I mean? So consider that, because a lot of times when we are on whatever path that we're on, we have this expectation that everybody needs to hop on too. But that doesn't make sense. And it's honestly not fair, because you can be telling people all the stuff that you know, but then you get frustrated if they don't understand. And it's not that they are not trying to understand. Maybe they are trying to understand. But this current lifetime of theirs might not be on the same wavelength as yours. I mean, does it not make sense? It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to. A lot of the stuff of what we witness, a lot of things of what we hear, a lot of the times doesn't make sense. But does it have to make sense to you right now? It might make sense to you a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, whenever. Or maybe your next lifetime. You might think of something like, I don't know why I thought about this, but this is it, right? But yeah, being chosen doesn't necessarily mean that you are being singled out from the world. Because ultimately, I believe we're here to have this human experience. But this doesn't mean that this is it. There is so much more of what we don't know that goes beyond this physical dimension of what we have right now. I find that we have so many different ideas and so many different ways of living and understanding life as we live life that, there's not just one way. There's not just one way to understanding something. And that's why all of us have something to contribute. All of us have a purpose. All of us are chosen. You just have to decide if you're really tapped in or not. Because a lot of us are not tapped in. For instance, this is just an example. I believe that I'm tapped in because in my life, which I feel like I've been a cat, I feel like I lived 9 lives. And I'm referring to like my personal life and my profession. Growing up and having all these different types of experiences and having a sense of protection, even though there were many of times where we weren't protected as children, but there was a protection in an energetic way. And I couldn't really explain that as a child, but that's what made me become more resilient. I couldn't even explain that, growing up. And then going into my adulthood, how there'll be certain situations that will happen, but because of past situations and putting the puzzle pieces, putting those patterns together, it's like, oh, okay. So again, being that from childhood being resilient, and then in my earlier adulthood being wise beyond my years, it has helped me help other people because of my own experiences and my own observation. So me tapping into that, although, a lot of these experiences weren't the best, but I turned it into something. And that's what I felt just in general. Whenever I go through anything that is in or out of my control, having the faith and having that protection, it has really allowed me to step outside of myself and come up with solutions that I would not even had thought of before. And that has allowed me to help people in general, and also help like with my clients. There's a type of intuition that I have, and I've been tapping into that more and more. I find that the more you get to know yourself, and you just have this level of self-awareness, but you also there's this explanation that you can't really explain, but more like a feeling, like the strong intuition, whatever that is, because everyone has different talents. Everyone has different types of things that they can pick up on a lot quicker than other people. But I find that once you tap into it and you practice it more and more, things begin to unfold and things just start to make more sense. And then when you explain to other people, when it makes sense to them, they totally see it right away. So I say all that to say, tap into your strengths, and sometimes you have to go back into your childhood. And I spoke about this, I've written about it on my website, gettingmymojoback.com. But your inner child, catering to that, is going to bring up a lot of strengths that you did not realize you had. It's also going to give you a sense of fulfillment, joyfulness back in this world. If you're tapping into the things you enjoyed when you were a child, when you're tapping into your inner child and really catering to him or her, them, you're going to unravel a whole bunch of things. I'm just telling you, I'm just the messenger, But I encourage anyone, if you're feeling lost and, especially depressed during this time of year, you're not alone. But I do encourage you to really tap into what you feel your strengths are, because people can tell you all the things, right? But you know yourself, you know your strengths, you know your talents. And even if you don't tap into those things per se, maybe you're already tapped into that. Tap into the things that bring you joy, because sometimes you discover your inner god or goddess by tapping into a hobby that you haven't done in a while, or just allowing yourself to have downtime. But when you just give yourself permission, whatever that looks like, feels like to you, it helps to heighten, your inner god and goddess. It does. You just have to give yourself permission. The world is stressful. We all know this. There's a lot of things that we can and can't control. But being chosen is a choice. Being chosen is a choice. An affirmation for that can be, I choose to tap in to my strengths. I choose to tap into my strengths and embody that. I am divine. I am a god. I am a goddess. And I choose to tap in to my strengths. Your weaknesses are only weak if you make it that way. But if you have weaknesses, you can automatically turn them into something else. You can really transform the way you think. You can transform the way you do things. You just have to make the choice. And again, you have to make a choice to be chosen. Bye.